Good. Well, it's my great pleasure here now to be talking to Professor Jihyeon from Ewha University, and I'm going to ask her one or two things about her own career and about English in Korea, and she is a great expert on that. She knows a great deal from her own experience and also from articles that I've read of hers. That was how I first came to know about her work. So can I first ask you, Jihyeon, what was it that brought you first to the world of English language education?
At first, it's a long story, because I began my graduate study in comparative literature at first, studying all those modern philosophy. I never knew there exists this area. And somehow the departmental director asked me to apply for a position for Korean language instructor, for which they are just opening a new class, the very first instructor. So I applied for that instructorship, and I earned it. And then I had to begin whole curriculum, material, getting the students, teaching, testing, everything was on my own. So I began to search for classes that will help for my class. And then I found a great department called Curriculum and Instruction. And I found the classes for teaching methods and developing materials, etc., all about second language teaching. And I found that so fascinating because it's directly helping my teaching. So that's how I ended up being in English education area.
Ah, lovely. So it sounds as if you found opportunities, but then had the initiative to take up the opportunities and to use them, and they've led you into a fulfilling way of working and living. Yeah, good. That's good. But now you've come into the School of Business at Ewha University, which at first sight that looks a bit unusual to find that you're in the School of Business.
Right.
How do you explain that?
When I first started my career at Ewha, in Korea, I began my teaching in English department, where I should focus on English language teaching, mostly at school level. And then somehow I moved to Ewha for business school. They said that they need to educate their students to be able to communicate in a global market. So I moved to the business school, and then my whole viewpoint has changed because when I worked in English department, all my focus was limited to language teaching at school level. But at business school, my view has expanded because I have to make them to be able to communicate. So I think now working in a business department, I got bigger view.
And does it have any disadvantages? For example, that it means the language is very functional all the time and everything is, bound to practical needs. Does it have disadvantages in that respect, that it limits you?
Yes, because I'm in business school, sometimes I work heavily for communication only. It doesn't matter whether it's English or Korean, I should work for communication. At the same time, since my career is in this field, I work for English language teaching as well. So sometimes I feel like my life is in splits. But come to think of it, it can be disadvantage to have two different lives. But if you can combine those two lives, then it can be powerful too.
So it can either make you schizophrenic, or they can complement each other and make your life richer. And for you, it made your life richer. That must partly be because of your own proactive and positive way to taking it and taking the opportunities again and making it into a good mixture, I think. Now, I know when I first came to know about you and then later to know you, it was through the things that you have written about teachers teaching students to communicate in schools and in universities. Now, it's been my impression this time that I've come to Korea that I've been approached by more people in the street who are ready to speak English and usually offering to help me, but through English, and feeling quite confident than, say, 2 years ago. Do you think that's possible, that people are becoming more confident?
Yes, people are becoming more confident because I think it's due to the introduction of English education at earlier age. And of course, we are pouring money into getting English proficiency in Korea.
Yeah. And the money in Hong Kong, people use the expression that whenever there's a problem, people throw money at it and think that will solve it. But of course, it won't necessarily. There must also be other things that people are doing with the money, which are improving the level. Can you? Yes,
of course. According to one of the research recently done, year 2011, it's done by one in economics area. He analyzed what can predict Koreans' English proficiency. Two predicting factors: their residence at the age of 14, and academic background of a father.
Yeah.
Can you believe? Amazing. So it means if they are living in a richer environment where they can pour more money to get the resource to be exposed to English, they end up gaining more proficiency.
Yes. And now, there's teachers in some countries say that they are becoming deprofessionalized, that they feel like disempowered because the government is trying to control what they do so much, either by appraising them or by judging them or by controlling the syllabus, so that they feel that they are becoming like technicians with no... Is that at all the case with Korean teachers?
Yes, of course. They regulate the curriculum and textbook. So teachers sometimes don't have freedom. For example, one funny example at the elementary school level is they regulate the vocabulary by the number of syllables. So in an elementary school textbook, we couldn't use elephants because it's too long. Can you believe? So sometimes we say, if you are powerful enough, you say, I ignore all these government curriculum. But teacher who's under some authority, they have to follow that strict regulations, which is delimiting teachers' ability. So I think we should provide more freedom and empower the teacher.
Somebody said in a session this morning that at elementary school, at certain levels, they were only allowed to teach speaking and listening and not allowed to use the written word at all. Is that another example?
In the beginning of elementary school years, only spoken languages are introduced. So teachers cannot give any written words. That's delimiting too.
I first learned that when I saw a book which somebody was writing for elementary school, and every written word was in Korean, and I could not understand it. That must be why.
Yes, that's why. They cannot write English word for them.
Do the teachers find that frustrating?
Frustrating. Because the language is naturally you are exposing to written system and oral system at the same time.
Yes, and it opens up a lot of other interesting activities that you can do if you use the written language.
Yes, without written language, the activities are limited.
Interesting. You mentioned in your paper just now the conflict between trying to get good scores and trying to learn to communicate. Could you explain that a little bit and suggest how you might reconcile those two goals?
Right. I've noticed recently that in Korean national curriculum or in the discussion for teacher development courses, we don't use much word for communication. We use a communicative approach, but we don't use communication. And that made me to think, if Korean people are able to be a proficient Korean speaker, because we grew up with this language, does it necessarily mean that we are a good communicator? And I just think we know a lot of English. We have enough English proficiency. But when you are sitting with native speaker colleagues like you, sometimes we don't know what to communicate and how to communicate. So unless we educate people to be able to communicate, I think it's very hard to make friends or to work with native speakers. So far at the school level in Korea, we are studying English for tests and study very hard to get higher rank. And I think we should remove that system. Everybody should be able to pass if they are able to communicate. And we should focus on communication.
So looking positively at what they can do in the way of communicating.
Right. With the minimal English, they can survive and communicate.
Korean people, sometimes people think that many Korean people are a little bit afraid to speak English. Could that be one of the reasons that they're so accustomed to?
Right, but if they are able to communicate with people with the minimal knowledge of English, they can still communicate. If they open up their mouth to communicate, then maybe they gain more knowledge. So it's like a chicken or eggs problem. Like if you know how to communicate, you get more. You become better speaker. So it's like that.
Actually, a good illustration of that I know is the movie, a very funny Korean movie called, I think it's called Please Teach Me English, about a girl from a bank who is sent to English classes. And first she's frightened of anything, but gradually she starts to speak a little bit. But as time goes on, she starts to speak such a lot and does very well. It's a very funny movie, but very true. I
learn a lot. Even when I email, even when I get email from you, to reply back to you, I think of what expression that I would use to make my points clear. I learn again and again. Through communication, I learn more.
Good.
So communication is important.
That's nice to hear. Now let's just imagine for a moment that you've been given the authority to make one policy decision at local government level which you think will improve English language learning in Korea, either at secondary school or at university, but that is up to you. What would your decision be?
I'd suggest to remove some of the worst test items, because occasionally I get some text messages from English language institutes. Okay, we have specialized class for fill in the blanks, and students go to take that class and all they do is fill in the blanks. Questions. Isn't that amazing? We have a lot of specialized classes like that. We should remove. We should change the test. And we should remove those worst items.
You learnt English in Korean, so how did you become so fluent?
Oh, it was so hard. Until I graduated from college, I didn't know how to speak. So when I first went to the States to study, American students greet to me, "How are you doing?" I never learned that expression. So I was searching for a word, "How are you doing?" "I'm doing my homework." That was my response. But I gradually learned. I lived in an American dormitory for 9 months. They gave me some expressions. That was the first time for me to open up.
I wonder if I can interject with a question. You talk about the importance of communication.
Yes.
And some changes I've seen in Korea recently is the amount of travel. Koreans are, at every age traveling overseas and experiencing real communication challenges. And I wonder what role that plays. And also technology in a social network world where they're also forced to use online communications, but in an authentic way. Is that affecting language acquisition?
Could be, in part, but when kids are traveling around the world with their family members, usually their parents are with them. So they have less chance to be able to use the language. So I doubt that really affects their gaining English proficiency. Usually they are going abroad to get additional English instruction or exposure themselves by attending to camps or activities. but with their parents, no gaming. And also, what was the other
The
question?
social networking.
Social networking is a quite good device to make these students to be motivated to communicate well. So I saw some of the elementary schools are forcing their kids to have pals overseas to communicate in English, which is really good. I think that really helps.
Good. Well, thank you very much indeed. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, and a pleasure
Thank you
to
very
talk to
much
somebody who is both so expert and also so friendly and so charming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed.